Hello Year 12s and welcome to this video on motivation strategies. There are 4 things that you need to do while you're watching this video. First, take the very best Cornell notes that you can. Second, use the pause and rewind functions. Use the pause function if you need to stop this video to take notes. Use the rewind function if you need to go over any information contained in this video. The third thing that you need to do is have your vocabulary sheets in front of you so that you can include in those vocabulary sheets the definitions of key terms or of any other words that you may be unfamiliar with. And the fourth thing that you need to do is have your summary books open in front of you so that you can include in those summary books the tables that are referred to in this video. Once you've finished watching this video, please read the pages of the textbook referred to on this slide. If you find any additional information in that reading that you consider useful, then supplement your Cornell notes with that information. Well, let's get started then. On this slide, I have set out 4 learning intentions. Make sure that you write these learning intentions in your Cornell notes. The first learning intention is that you should be able to explain motivation strategies. The second learning intention is that you should be able to discuss the advantages and disadvantages of the different motivation strategies and their effect on short and long-term employee motivation. The purpose of this video is to provide you with the information that you need to achieve these first 2 learning intentions. The third learning intention is that you should be able to compare and evaluate strategies used for motivation when managing a business. And the fourth learning intention is that you should be able to propose and justify strategies to manage employees effectively. You will be achieving these third and fourth learning intentions through completing the learning activities that we'll be doing in class. By now, you should be very familiar with the idea that employees are critical to the success of a business because a business relies on its employees to achieve the business objectives of the business. One of the biggest challenges that managers face is to manage their employees effectively. That is, to manage them in a way that motivates those employees to achieve the business objectives. In previous videos, we have also looked at 3 theories of motivation. These are Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Locke and Latham's goal-setting theory, and Lawrence and Naraya's 4-drive theory. In this video, we will look at how these motivation theories can be used to develop motivation strategies. That is, strategies that motivate employees. There are 5 motivation strategies. We'll be looking at each of these in turn, as well as at their advantages and disadvantages and their effect on the short-term and long-term motivation of employees. The 5 motivation strategies that we'll be looking at are performance-related pay, career advancement, investment in training, support, and sanction. It is very important that you read any SAC or exam question carefully to see whether it is asking you to refer to a motivation theory or a motivation strategy. If the question is asking you to refer to a motivation theory, then you have 3 theories to choose from. These are Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Locke and Latham's goal-setting theory, and Lawrence and Naraya's 4-drive theory. On the other hand, if the question is asking you to refer to a motivation strategy, then you have 5 motivation strategies to choose from. These are performance-related pay, career advancement, investment in training, support, and sanction. These are the boxes that I keep referring to. However, there is an important link between these boxes. You also need to be able to explain how each of these 3 motivation theories supports, that is consistent with, each of these 5 motivation strategies. The first motivation strategy that we're going to look at is performance-related pay. This slide sets out a definition of performance-related pay, examples of it, and a description of how performance-related pay is determined. Most importantly, it also describes, first, how performance-related pay motivates employees, second, the advantages and disadvantages of performance-related pay, and third, the extent to which performance-related pay has a short or long-term effect on employee motivation. These are the key knowledge points referred to in our first two learning intentions. As you can see from this slide, performance-related pay is a financial reward that a business gives to employees whose work has reached or exceeded a set standard. Look down the left-hand side of your vocabulary sheets, find the term performance-related pay, and write this definition in there. Examples of performance-related pay include bonuses, pay rises, commission, profit sharing, and giving an employee free shares in the company that operates the business. A bonus is a payment that is made to an employee for reaching or exceeding a target. For example, if the employee works in the sales and marketing department of a business, then they might be given a sales target that they're expected to achieve over a year. An employee who achieves that sales target might be paid a bonus of, say, $10,000 for that year. If the employee exceeds their sales target by, for example, 10%, then they might receive a higher bonus of, say, $15,000 for that year. Alternatively, the employee might be rewarded with a pay rise. That is, their wages or pay for the next year are increased. Some businesses build financial rewards into their employees' remuneration arrangements. Where an employee sells goods or services, then the business might pay them a commission. A commission is a percentage of the revenue that an employee makes for the business by selling goods and services of the business. For instance, if a person works in a clothing store, they might receive 5% of the sale price of every item of clothing that they sell, in addition to their weekly wage. Profit sharing is another kind of performance-related pay. This is where an employee is paid a percentage of the profit that the business earns, so that the higher the profit that the business makes, the greater is the payment to that employee. Finally, where the business is structured as a company, an employee who meets or exceeds a target might be given free shares in that company. This means that the employee will be entitled to be paid part of the profits of the company by way of dividends, and will also be able to make a profit if they sell their shares in the company, because they paid nothing for those shares in the first place. All of these are examples of performance-related pay that is designed to motivate employees to work hard to achieve the business objectives of the business, and in particular, the business's objective of increasing its profits. Generally speaking, whether an employee is entitled to performance-related pay will be determined at an annual performance appraisal. You'll recall that a performance appraisal is a performance management strategy. It's a process for measuring how well an employee has performed their job, for providing feedback to the employee, and for establishing a plan to improve the future performance of the employee, for example, by setting new employee goals that encourage the growth and development of the employee. Well, as part of this process, an employee's manager will decide whether the employee has met or exceeded or failed to meet the goals that have been set for that employee. The size and type of the financial reward that is given to the employee will be determined by reference to whether the employee has achieved the goals set for them, and if so, whether they've only just achieved those goals or have in fact exceeded those goals. A key thing that you need to be able to do is explain how the three motivation theories that we've looked at support performance-related pay as a motivation strategy. Performance-related pay can be particularly effective at motivating junior employees who are on relatively low pay, and also for motivating more senior employees who want to be recognised for the contribution that they make to the business. According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, junior employees are likely to be motivated by their physiological needs, that is, the need for a paying job, and so they will be motivated to work hard for the business if that gives them the opportunity to achieve additional pay, whether that's in the form of a bonus, a pay rise, or commission. More senior employees have probably satisfied their physiological needs because they are likely to have a job that pays reasonably well. Accordingly, they won't be motivated to work harder to satisfy their physiological needs. However, according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they are likely to be motivated by self-esteem needs. That is, they will be motivated to work hard for the business if they will be rewarded with status or recognition. Performance-related pay, such as a bonus, a pay rise, a share in the profits of the business, or free shares in the company that operates the business, are a way of giving these employees this status and recognition. Not many employees get to share in the profits of the business. Not many employees get free shares in the company that operates the business. So these are status symbols. In addition, being given a bonus, a share in the profits of the business, or free shares in the company that operates the business recognises the contribution that these more senior employees have made to the business. However, according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, very senior, or the most senior employees might not be motivated by performance-related pay because they are likely to have satisfied their physiological and self-esteem needs. In such a case, they will be motivated to work hard for the business by the opportunity to satisfy their self-actualization needs. That is, they will not be motivated by increased financial rewards, but instead by being given an interesting and challenging job, participation in decision-making, and the opportunity to develop their skills. In contrast to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Locke and Latham's goal-setting theory suggests that all employees will be motivated by performance-related pay because performance-related pay is one of the outcomes, referred to in the fifth stage of goal setting, that can be given to employees who achieve their individual goals. Finally, Lawrence and Naraya's 4-drive theory states that employees who have a strong desire to acquire will be motivated by performance-related pay because giving an employee a financial reward, such as a bonus, a pay rise, commission, a share in the profits of the business, or free shares in the company that operates the business, will respond to that employee's drive to acquire. We now come to the advantages and disadvantages of performance-related pay as a motivation strategy. The second learning intention requires you to be able to discuss these advantages and disadvantages. You'll see that I've colour-coded the advantages and disadvantages so that related advantages and disadvantages are in the same colour. This sets you up for a discussion where you have to weigh up related advantages and disadvantages. The first advantage of performance-related pay is that it is a direct financial reward to employees, and so is a very clear and tangible way of rewarding an employee for reaching or exceeding their goals. However, performance-related pay does reduce pay equality because two employees who are doing the same job might receive a different amount of pay where one of those employees has been more successful in achieving their goals than the other employee. This can result in dissatisfaction and tension in the workplace because the employee who misses out might feel that they are not being treated equally with the other employee. The second advantage of performance-related pay is that it recognises achievement. That is, it recognises the success of an employee in meeting or exceeding their goals. However, this can also discourage teamwork, and this is a disadvantage of performance-related pay. This is because an employee might take the view that they can earn more if they do all the work themselves, and so get credit for all of that work. This can be very detrimental to a corporate culture of cooperation and collaboration between employees. Now, it is possible to give performance-related pay to a team so that if the team achieves its goals, then the team receives, say, a bonus. However, the problem then becomes how to divide this bonus among team members, particularly where different team members might not have put in the same amount of effort. Third, while performance-related pay rewards performance, if the goals that have to be met are too challenging, then employees will be demotivated, because no matter how hard they work, they will not be able to achieve those goals and so will not be eligible for a financial reward. Finally, performance-related pay can increase productivity levels because it motivates employees to work harder by giving them the opportunity to earn a financial reward. On the other hand, there's a risk that, in trying to qualify for the financial reward, employees will cut corners in ways that compromise safety in the workplace. For example, they might run equipment at higher speeds than are safe. If an accident happens, then this can stop production and so actually reduce the productivity of the business. The final point to note is that performance-related pay only has a short-term effect on the motivation of employees. That is, its motivation effect wears off in a short time. This is because performance-related pay is typically calculated each year. While an employee is motivated to work hard to earn the financial reward for a year, once the employee has been given that financial reward for the year, then that reward ceases to motivate the employee. They've already got the money in their pocket. And so this is a disadvantage of performance-related pay. That is, it's a disadvantage that it only motivates employees in the short term. Now, make sure that you include a copy of this slide in your summary books, together with any additional notes from this discussion that you need to understand the information contained in this table. This brings us to the second motivation strategy, which is career advancement. This slide sets out a definition of career advancement and a description of how career advancement is determined. Most importantly, it also describes, first, how career advancement motivates employees, second, the advantages and disadvantages of career advancement, and third, the extent to which career advancement has a short or long-term effect on employee motivation. These are the key knowledge points referred to in our first two learning intentions. As you can see from this slide, career advancement is the promotion of employees to positions that include more responsibility and authority. Look down the left-hand side of your vocabulary sheets, find the term career advancement, and write this definition in there. For career advancement to be an effective motivation strategy, the business must have in place policies that reward and recognize an employee's performance by promoting that employee. These policies and the procedures used to determine whether an employee should be promoted must be fair and transparent, so that promotion is based on an employee's performance rather than on favoritism. A key thing that you need to be able to do is explain how the three motivation theories that we've looked at support career advancement as a motivation strategy. Well, career advancement can motivate employees to work hard for the business in three ways. First, by being promoted to a higher position, an employee will receive higher pay and possibly other fringe benefits such as a company car. According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, this will motivate employees by satisfying their physiological needs, at least to the extent that those needs have not already been satisfied. According to Lawrence and Naray's 4-drive theory, this will also motivate employees by responding to their drive to acquire, in this case, their desire to be paid a higher amount or to be given other fringe benefits. Second, by being promoted, an employee will increase their status within the business. They've climbed higher up the business hierarchy and so now have more power, a better title, perhaps a bigger office. According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, this will motivate employees by satisfying their self-esteem needs, again to the extent that those needs have not already been met. According to Lawrence and Naraya's 4 drive theory, this will also motivate employees by responding to their drive to acquire, in this case their desire to acquire status and power. Third, by being promoted, an employee is likely to be taking on a more challenging and possibly a more interesting job. According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, this will motivate employees by satisfying their self-actualization needs. According to Lawrence and Naraya's 4 drive theory, this will also motivate employees by responding to their drive to learn. Finally, Locke and Latham's goal-setting theory suggests that all employees will be motivated by career advancement because career advancement is one of the outcomes, referred to in the 5th stage of goal setting, that can be provided to employees who achieve their individual goals. We now come to the advantages and disadvantages of career advancement as a motivation strategy. Our second learning intention requires you to be able to discuss these advantages and disadvantages. You'll see that I've colour-coded the advantages and disadvantages so that related advantages and disadvantages are in the same colour. This sets you up for a discussion where you have to weigh up related advantages and disadvantages. The first advantage of career advancement as a motivation strategy is that career advancement rewards performance by promoting employees who have reached or exceeded their goals. On the other hand, career advancement can create employee unrest if the policies and procedures used to determine whether an employee should be promoted are not fair and transparent, so that promotion is not clearly based on merit and performance. The second advantage of career advancement as a motivation strategy is that it helps retain talented employees. Talented employees will be keen to use their talents and so need the challenge that comes with a promotion. If they don't get those challenges, that is, if they're not promoted, then they may leave the business. This in turn means that there might be a loss of corporate knowledge. Long-serving employees have a lot of knowledge about how the business operates, its competitors, what works and what doesn't work, and much of this information isn't written down. So, where a long-serving employee leaves the business, this knowledge will be lost to the business. Of course, if an employee misses out on a promotion that they think they deserve, then they may well become demotivated and leave the business anyway. The third advantage of career advancement as a motivation strategy is that it increases the contribution of an employee to the business. Being promoted typically means that the employee gets a job that is more challenging and that has a greater impact on the business. This means that if the employee is successful in their new job, they will be contributing more to the business. Having said this, if an employee is promoted to a job that they are not able to do properly, perhaps because they lack the skills or the experience, then the productivity of the business may fall because the employee is not doing their new job properly. Similarly, if the responsibilities of the new job are too great, in the sense that the employee cannot do all that the job needs to be done, then the employee may not be able to do their job properly, which again may reduce the productivity of the business. The final point to note is that career advancement has a long-term effect on the motivation of employees. That is, its motivation effect continues for a long time. This is because by giving employees the opportunity for a career path which climbs up the business hierarchy, employees will be motivated to work hard to move up one step in that business hierarchy. And then they'll be motivated by the opportunity to move up to the next step. And then they'll be motivated by the opportunity to move up to the next step, and so on. It can take many years to climb to the top of the business hierarchy. The fact that career advancement has a long-term effect on the motivation of employees is an advantage of career advancement as a motivation strategy. Now, make sure that you include a copy of this slide in your summary books, together with any additional notes from this discussion that you need to be able to properly understand the information contained in this slide. Our third motivation strategy is investment in training. This slide sets out a definition of investment in training together with the two types of training. Most importantly, it also describes first, how investment in training motivates employees, second, the advantages and disadvantages of investment in training, and third, the extent to which investment in training has a short or long-term effect on employee motivation. These are the key knowledge points referred to in our first two learning intentions. As you can see from this slide, a business invests in training where it provides its employees with the knowledge and skills that they need to perform their jobs properly. Look down the left-hand side of your vocabulary sheets, find the term training and write this definition in there. In class, we've already looked at the two types of training, that is, on-the-job training and off-the-job training, together with their advantages and disadvantages. On-the-job training is where the employee learns from experienced employees in the workplace, for example, through an apprenticeship, by being rotated into another business unit, or by being coached by a supervisor or a work colleague. On the other hand, off-the-job training is where the employee learns skills in a formal training environment outside the workplace, for example, through attending a TAFE course, lectures, or simulations. Look down the left-hand side of your vocabulary sheets, find the terms on-the-job training and off-the-job training, and, if you haven't already done so, write these definitions in there. Now, a key thing that you need to be able to do is to explain how the three theories of motivation that we've looked at support investment in training as a motivation strategy. Well, investment in training can motivate employees in three ways. First, training gives employees the knowledge and the skills that they need to do their jobs properly. According to Lawrence and Naraya's 4 drive theory, giving an employee the training they need to obtain the knowledge and skills required to make them competent in their jobs responds to the employee's drive to learn. An employee who is competent at their job will also be motivated to do it properly because they know that they have the knowledge and skills required to do that job. On the other hand, an employee who feels unable to do their job properly because they do not have the required knowledge and skills will quickly become demotivated and will give up on their job. Second, the fact that the business is prepared to invest money in training its employees makes those employees feel valued. And giving employees the knowledge and skills that they need to do their jobs properly makes them feel as if they are contributing to the business. According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, this will motivate employees by satisfying their self-esteem needs. Employees will be motivated because the willingness of the business to invest in training the employee recognizes the contribution that the employee makes to the business. The fact that the business is prepared to invest in training its employees will also motivate employees by satisfying their self-actualization needs. This is because training is a way to equip employees with the knowledge and skills that they need to take on more challenging and interesting jobs. Third, training involves teamwork between the trainer and the trainee. According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, this will motivate employees by satisfying their social needs, such as the need to work in a team. According to Lawrence and Naraya's 4 drive theory, this will also motivate employees by responding to their drive to bond. Finally, Locke and Latham's goal-setting theory suggests that all employees will be motivated by investment in training because investment in training is one of the outcomes, referred to in the 5th stage of goal-setting, that can be given to employees who achieve their individual goals. These employees can be rewarded by giving them training to further develop their knowledge and skills. Alternatively, investment in training is one of the outcomes, again referred to in the fifth stage of goal setting, that can be used for employees who have not achieved their individual goals. Training can be used to give them the additional knowledge and skills that they need to achieve those goals. We now come to the advantages and disadvantages of investment in training as a motivation strategy. Our second learning intention requires you to be able to discuss these advantages and disadvantages. You'll see that I've coded the advantages and disadvantages so that related advantages and disadvantages are in the same colour. This sets you up for a discussion where you have to weigh up related advantages and disadvantages. The first advantage of investment in training is that it shows that the business values its employees and the contribution that they make to the business. Employees are the most important asset of a business, and so it is critical that the business invests in them, just as it would in keeping its equipment well maintained and operational. On the other hand, investment in training costs money, at least where the training is off-the-job training. The second advantage of investment in training is that it demonstrates that the business is committed to providing career advancement opportunities for its employees, because the business is investing in providing those employees with the knowledge and skills that they need to earn a promotion. This commitment of the business to its employees in turn generates employee loyalty and attachment to the business, which also saves the business costs, because then the business doesn't have to replace and train new employees because existing employees have left the business to work elsewhere. This mutual commitment of the business to the development of its employees and of the employees to the business creates a positive corporate culture where employees are valued. However, if the business doesn't give its employees the opportunity to use the new skills that they have acquired through training, for example, through being given jobs that require the use of those skills, then the employees may become demotivated and leave the business to work somewhere else where they can use their new skills. The final point to note is that investment in training has a long-term effect on the motivation of employees. That is, its motivation effect continues for a long time. This is because investment in training is an investment in employees, and it will open up opportunities for those employees to undertake a range of new, challenging and interesting jobs that they could not otherwise have done without that training. For this reason, employees will generally be motivated by the opportunity to take up training opportunities. The fact that investment in training has a long-term effect on the motivation of employees is an advantage of investment in training as a motivation strategy. Now make sure that you include in your summary books a copy of this slide, together with any additional notes from this discussion that you find useful to help you understand the information contained on this slide. The fourth motivation strategy is support. This slide sets out a definition of support and some examples of support. Most importantly, it also describes, first, how support motivates employees; second, the advantages and disadvantages of support; and third, the extent to which support has a short or long-term effect on employee motivation. These are the key knowledge points referred to in our first two learning intentions. As you can see from this slide, support refers to encouraging employees to improve their performance by supporting them with the tools necessary to improve that performance. This is consistent with a positive corporate culture. Look down the left-hand side of your vocabulary sheets, find the term support, and write that definition in there. Examples of the kinds of support that a business can provide to its employees are pay that fairly reflects the employee's contribution to the business, job security, working in teams, frequent positive communication between a manager and their employees, training, and fair processes for resolving complaints, assessing performance, and making decisions. These are all things that a business can do to assist employees to improve their performance. Now, a key thing that you need to be able to do is to explain how the three motivation theories that we've looked at are consistent with support as a motivation strategy. The essence of support is that it makes employees feel valued by the business. According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, providing support to employees will motivate employees by satisfying their needs. Giving employees pay that fairly reflects their contribution to the business satisfies employees' physiological needs. Giving employees job security, for example, a long-term contract, satisfies employees' safety needs. Working in teams satisfies employees' social needs. Frequent positive communication between a manager and their employees satisfies employees' self-esteem needs. According to Lawrence and Naraya's 4 drive theory, providing support to employees will respond to the 4 drives that employees have. Giving employees pay that fairly reflects the contribution they make to the business responds to employees' drive to acquire. Working in teams and frequent positive communication between a manager and their employee responds to employees' drive to bond. Providing training to employees responds to employees' drive to learn. Giving employees job security and providing employees with fair processes for resolving complaints, assessing performance, and making decisions that impact on employees responds to employees' drive to defend. Finally, Locke and Latham's goal-setting theory suggests that all employees will be motivated by various kinds of support, because these kinds of support can be one of the outcomes referred to in the 5th stage of goal setting that is given to employees who achieve their individual goals. For example, increased remuneration, providing job security through a longer-term contract, and providing training are all rewards that could be given to an employee who achieves their individual goals. We now come to the advantages and disadvantages of support as a motivation strategy. Our second learning intention requires you to be able to discuss these advantages and disadvantages. An advantage of support is that it motivates employees to work hard because, by providing support, the business is showing its commitment to its employees. This in turn encourages employees to be loyal to the business, which means that staff turnover is reduced because employees want to stay with the business. As a result, the business saves the costs it would otherwise incur from recruiting and training new employees to replace employees that have left the business. In addition, some kinds of support, such as frequent positive communication between a manager and their employees, and having fair processes for resolving complaints, assessing performance, and making decisions that impact on employees, won't cost the business money. On the other hand, support will only work if the business has a positive corporate culture where employees are valued. The success of support also relies on managers' communication skills, because working in teams, positive communications between a manager and their employees, and the fair resolution of complaints, the fair assessment of performance, and the fair making of decisions depends upon the ability of managers to communicate effectively with their employees. The final point to note is that support has a long-term effect on the motivation of employees. That is, its motivation effects continue for a long time. This is because support is focused on helping employees and therefore makes employees feel valued. This commitment of the business to its employees will generate a corresponding commitment of the employees to the success of the business. The fact that support has a long-term effect on the motivation of employees is an advantage of support as a motivation strategy. Make sure that you include a copy of this slide in your summary books, and that you also include in your summary books any additional notes from this discussion that help you to better understand the information contained in this slide. The fifth and final motivation strategy is sanctions. This slide sets out a definition of sanctions and some examples of sanctions. Most importantly, it also describes, first, how sanctions motivate employees, second, the advantages and disadvantages of sanctions, and third, the extent to which sanctions have a short or long-term effect on employee motivation. These are the key knowledge points referred to in our first two learning intentions. As you can see from this slide, sanctions refers to penalising, that is punishing, employees for underperformance. Look down the left-hand side of your vocabulary sheets, find the term sanctions, and write that definition in there. I've set out 3 examples of the kinds of sanctions that a business can use against an employee who is underperforming. First, reprimands, that is a telling off. Second, disciplinary counselling, that is a warning to improve performance accompanied by an agreed plan to improve performance where a failure to comply with that plan will result in more serious action against the employee. And third, as a last resort, dismissal. Now, a key thing that you need to be able to do is to explain how the 3 motivation theories that we've looked at support sanctions as a motivation strategy. The fact is that not all employees are motivated by performance-related pay, career advancement, investment in training or support. However, some employees who underperform can be motivated by sanctions. The essence of sanctions is that they motivate employees by threatening those employees with punishment. According to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, threatening to reduce an employee's pay will threaten the satisfaction of that employee's physiological needs, and so will motivate the employee to improve their performance. Likewise, threatening to dismiss an employee will threaten the satisfaction of the employee's safety needs, and so will motivate the employee to improve their performance. And finally, threatening to demote an employee will threaten the satisfaction of that employee's self-esteem needs, and so will motivate the employee to improve their performance. According to Lawrence and Naraya's 4 drive theory, threatening to reduce an employee's pay or threatening to demote the employee will motivate the employee to improve their performance because these actions are contrary to the employee's drive to acquire. Finally, under Locke and Latham's goal-setting theory, one outcome, referred to in the 5th stage of goal setting, could be to penalise or punish an employee who fails to achieve their individual goals by imposing a punishment such as a pay reduction, a demotion, or, as a last resort, dismissing the employee. We now come to the advantages and disadvantages of sanctions as a motivation strategy. Our second learning intention requires you to be able to discuss these advantages and disadvantages. An advantage of sanctions is that they can motivate underperforming employees for the reasons that I've just described. However, a disadvantage is that if the process for determining sanctions is not transparently and fairly applied, then employees may become disengaged and demotivated. The final point to note is that sanctions have a short-term effect on the motivation of employees. That is, the motivation effect of sanctions wears off after a short time. This is because sanctions are likely to cause resentment by the employee. While they may cause a superficial change in the employee's behaviour, they will not of themselves cause a fundamental change that will motivate the employee to consistently work hard. So it is a disadvantage of sanctions that they only have a short-term motivation effect on employees. Now make sure that you include a copy of this slide in your summary books, together with any additional notes that you get from this discussion that will help you to understand the information contained in this slide. I strongly suggest that where a SAC or exam question gives you a choice of the motivation strategies that you can use to answer that question, then you should use performance-related pay, career advancement, or investment in training in preference to support or sanctions. This is because these first three motivation strategies provide you with much more scope for discussion. Well, that brings us to the end of this video. As a result of watching and taking notes on this video, you should now be able to, firstly, explain motivation strategies, and secondly, discuss the advantages and disadvantages of the different motivation strategies and their effect on short and long-term employee motivation. You'll be achieving the final two learning intentions, that is, the learning intention that requires you to be able to compare and evaluate strategies used for motivation when managing a business, and the learning intention that requires you to be able to propose and justify strategies to manage employees effectively by completing the learning activities that I give you in class. Now you need to read the pages of the textbook referred to on the first slide in this video. If you find any additional useful information from that reading, then please include that information in your Cornell notes. Thank you for your attention.